Hello, my dear students. So how are you today? I hope that you are doing well, and I really hope that you are safe. Okay, this time that we are in COVID-19 pandemic, I really hope that you are going to take care of yourself, of your family members, and of course, you are going to follow the health and safety protocols. Okay, so today we are going to have our discussion in English for academic and professional purposes. Right. Okay. So, okay. So, I will be discussing to you the first module or our first lesson in English for academic and professional purposes. And here you are going to differentiate language used in academic text from various disciplines. Okay, so our objective is for you to be able to differentiate language used in academic text from various disciplines. Okay, so before we proceed with our learning concept, let us first define some of the vocabulary words which you are going to encounter in this lesson. Okay, so let's try to define some of vocabulary or terms that you will encounter. Okay, so let's begin with academic language. Okay, class, when we say academic language, it includes language that is used in textbooks, in classrooms, on tests, and in discipline, for example, in English, in science. So it is different in vocabulary and structure from everyday spoken English of social interaction. Each type of communication, both academic and social, has its purpose, and neither of them is superior or inferior. Okay, it means that the language that you use in science is different from the language that you use in business. Okay, and for each of this field, we have certain registers that we use. Okay, next is medical language. Medical language is used to describe the components and processes of the human body, the medical procedures, diseases, disorders, and pharmacology. Now, simply put, when we speak of medical language, it is a vocabulary that medical professionals use to describe the body, what it does, and the treatments that they prescribe. Okay? Next, when we say legal language, what do we mean by that? Legal language means it's a language that is used by a person that is connected to the legal profession. So who are the people that used legal language? They are the people that's connected to the legal profession, and they are lawyers or attorneys, judge, okay, jurist, or and other legislative draftsmen in their professional capacities. Law, being a technical subject, speaks through its own register. Okay. Next, we have journalistic language. Journalistic language is a type of language that helps to understand how journalists create their stories or their reports, and how they shape their point of view and deliver the expected news, and how media language is different from other language encounter. So journalistic language is the type of language that you read when you read newspaper or when you watch TV. Okay? So the type of language that they use, the reporters use, the anchors use. Now, this is what we call journalistic language. Okay, next. Literary language, register of a language that is used in literary writing. Now, what are those? All right. So we have here this one, jargon. When we speak of jargon are special words or expressions that are used by a particular profession or a group of profession, and this can be difficult for other people who are not in the profession. For example, for teachers, there are some jargons or special words that only for teaching, okay? So meaning to say, if you're going to ask doctors about these specific words, they may not be able to understand it. Why? It's because these words are special words, which we call as jargon, and only these particular people can understand this jargon, okay? Okay. All right. Next, we also have legal indictment. Legal indictment, it's a formal accusation of a felony issued by a grand jury based upon a proposed charge, witnesses' testimony, and other evidence presented by a public prosecutor or district attorney or the attorney in your town. Legal indictment is the grand jury's determination that there is enough evidence that the defendant committed the crime to justify having a trial voted by grand jury. Now, class, in order to issue an indictment, the grand jury doesn't make a determination of guilt, but only the probability that a crime was committed, that the accused person did it, and he or she should be tried. Okay? Now, what happened? So the attorneys or lawyers do not present a full case to that grand jury, but often only introduce key facts that's sufficient to show the probability that the accused committed the crime. So that's what you call legal indictment. Okay. We also have sub-story. Sub-story is a sentimental story. When it touches your emotion and it has so much sentiments in it, then you have your sub-story. Okay, let's have another word. This one, autopsy. Autopsy is a post-mortem examination, abduction, necropsy, autopsia, or autopsia cadaverum, is a surgical procedure that consists of a thorough examination of a core by dissection to determine the cause, mode, and manner of death, or to evaluate any disease or injury that may be present for research or educational purposes. Okay, class. So this this word, this autopsy word, where do you usually find this one? Okay, you may find this in a report or in a crime case, right? Okay. This one, MIMS, the monthly index of medical specialties, or means it's a pharmaceutical prescribing reference guide published in the United Kingdom since 1959 by Haymarket Media Group. So this, the monthly index of medical specialties, it's another, it's an example of a word that's somewhat, as what I've said earlier, we call as jargon. Why? Because this can only be understood by a certain group of people, and only those people that are within this profession. Okay. All right. Next, let's proceed now to our learning concept. Okay. So what is an academic text? Class, an academic text is typically used for textbook, for test, in classroom, and in any other discipline related to the field of academics. Now, it is very different from the structure of a vocabulary and the structure from everyday conversation through social interaction. Academic text is a formal way to present words and terms typical for the field. Okay? So academic text class, when you have a book and you open your book and you see some text there and you see the type of language that is being used, therefore, that book is an academic text. Why? Because the language that's used here is suitable for the academe. Okay? Next, let's have the content and style of academic text. So, how do you determine if this is an academic text? Now, class, simply take note. It includes concepts and theories that's related to a specific discipline. Okay, usually that's what you're going to see when you open your book, scan the pages, and you're going to see concepts and theories that's related to a specific discipline, may it be in science, in English, or what. Then it has a clear structured introduction, body, and conclusion. It includes information from credible sources that are properly cited. Credible sources meaning sources that are referred, for example, journal articles, research, books, okay? And the sources are included or properly cited, may it be in an APA format or MLA format. Then it includes concepts and theories that are related to the specific discipline that you are exploring in that specific book. And usually it exhibits all the properties of a well-written text, meaning it's organized, there's unity, there's coherence, and there is a strict adherence to the rules of language and mechanics. There is no error in grammar, and there is no error in capitalization, and even in grammar are like tenses and so on and so forth. Okay. Now, the specific ideas in various academic texts are dependent on the field of academic text that you are reading. For example, humanities texts discuss more about the various human expressions, such as art and languages, while sciences contain the scientific method that discusses the objective result of an experiment. In various academic texts that can be understood after skimming and closely reading the text. Okay, now, okay, this is just an example. Let me skip this one. Now, class, when you access information, you should pay attention to how the ideas are arranged. Now, take note that there are instances when complex information can be better understood if the ideas are presented in an organized manner, which is one of the characteristics of an academic text. So take note, class, one of the characteristics of an academic text is organization, meaning it's organized. Then look for every piece of information about the specific information. For example, if it's about the medicine, okay, that is being referred to in that text, okay? Then there are certain registers of language or the types of language used that's peculiar to specific professions. For example, medical science, engineering, and business. And these types of language used may be unintelligible to people who do not belong to the same profession. And such language use is also referred to as the jargon. Okay, now class, what do we mean by this? It simply means that there are some texts where you read some words which we call registers of language. Why? Because the types of language that are used are just peculiar to specific professions, meaning to say there are words that only this specific profession can understand it and other professions can't. Okay? All right. Okay, let's have this one. In the case of aspirin, it is a common drug to relieve pain and reduce fever that has gained popularity in knowledge, meaning to say it's somewhat popular already to people what aspirin is. And the explanation given in the MIMS entry, however, contains jargons and codes that are not familiar to lay reader. It is therefore important to grasp the coding system. What do the initials stands for? So what does it mean? Class, sometimes there are some symbolisms, okay? There are some symbols out there or abbreviated word. So it's very important that you know how to code them, how to understand them so that you would be able to get what it means. All right. For example, this one, here is an example. MIMS explains that C stands for contents. Therefore, aspirin is acetyl salicylic acid. D is for dosage, which is 1 tablet daily. I stands for indications or what the medicine is recommended for, so that it prevents certain health-threatening conditions. Okay? So the list that follows consists jargon in medical sciences. If you see CI, it stands for contraindication, meaning when these conditions are present in the patient, the medicine should not be administered. Another thing, special precautions. Special precautions mean there is a need for extra care when you take this medicine. Then AR stands for adverse reaction or bad or unfavorable effects or reactions to the medicine. Then we have DI or drug interactions, which means this aspirin interacts with any of the items included in the list. Okay, now class that you already know what B stands for, the next time that you read this, you can already have an idea on how to access information and how academic language plays an important role in learning. Okay, now let's continue. Now class, let's talk about language register. So What is linguistic register? Okay. The concept of the linguistic register has been described by Tradriel in 1983. And according to Tradriel, linguistic varieties that are linked to occupations, professions, or topics have been termed as registers. And the register of law, for example, is different from the register of medicine, which is in turn is different from the language of engineering, and so on. Of course, different from the language of teaching. Okay? Registers are usually characterized solely by vocabulary differences. And registers are simply a special case of a kind of language being produced by the social situation. Okay, next, according to Harold, all right, according to Harold Schiffman, it is a set of specialized vocabulary and preferred or dispreferred syntactic and the rhetorical devices or structures that are used by specific social professional groups for special purposes. So a register is a property or characteristics of a language and not an individual or a class of speakers. Okay. Okay, now class, we also have what we call stylistic variation. There are degrees of formality in language used. Let's have the first one. Registers are marked by a variety of specialized vocabulary and turns of phrases, colloquialisms, and the use of jargon. Second, a register can be considered as a unique way a speaker uses language in different circumstances. Third, registers encompass all the ways in which humans communicate to one another in specific parameters. Now, class, some of the language registers are as follows. Okay. Some of the language registers are as follows. We have language of medicine or medical science. These consist of medical terminologies. We have language of law or legal language, and this consists of language used in the field of law. Then we have journalism or journalistic language. You can see this in publications, in newspapers, and you can hear them so much when you watch TV from the news. And you also have language of literature. It's language of literature when it's about literary language. Okay? All right. So I hope, class, that you learned something from our discussion for today. So let me just have a recap of what I've talked to you today. All right? Okay, so class, today, we differentiate language used in academic text from various disciplines. And I am really hoping that you are able to differentiate language used in academic text from various disciplines. And just to have a short recap, when we speak of academic language, it includes language used in textbooks, in classrooms, in tests, in any type of discipline, for example, in science, in math, so it's academic language. We have linguistic register. These are certain registers in language or type of language use that's only peculiar to a specific profession, for example, medical, science, engineering, business, and so on and so forth. Class, it's a medical language if it's used to describe components and processes of the human body, the medical procedures, diseases, disorders, and so on. It's also legal language if it means language used by the persons that are connected to the legal profession. And it's journalistic language if the type of language used helps understand how journalists create their stories or their reports and how they share their points and deliver the expected news, and how media language is different from other languages that we encounter. We have also literary language. There's a register of a language that's used in literary writing. We also have class what we call jargons. When we speak of jargons, these are special expressions used by a particular professions. Also, we have legal indictment. It's a formal accusation of a felony, usually by a grand jury based upon a proposed charge, witnesses' testimony, and other evidence presented by public prosecutor. Sub-story, it's a sentimental story. Autopsy, it's a post-mortem examination, abduction, and so on. It's usually common in crimes. The monthly index of medical specialties or means, it's a pharmaceutical prescribing preference or prescribing reference guide published in the United Kingdom. So take note that an academic text is what you used in your class. For example, textbooks, tests, okay? And you are able to find out if it's an academic text because based on the content and style of the academic text, you're going to see that it includes concepts and theories that's related to specific discipline. It has a clear structure because it has introduction, body, and conclusion. It also includes information from credible sources, and it's properly cited. It includes concepts and theories that are related to the specific discipline that you want to explore. And of course, usually it exhibits all the properties of a well-written text, and these properties are organization, unity, and strict adherence to the rules of the language and mechanics. Next, take note, class, that there are certain registers of language, and I hope you've got what I've given you as an example. Take note that a linguistic register is a concept that has been described by Tredreal as linguistic varieties that link to occupations, professions, or topics. And there are different types of registers. For example, registers of law, registers of medicine, registers of education. Okay. All right. So take note that some of the language registers that we have language of medicine or medical language or medical science terminologies. We have language of law or legal language. We have language of journalism or journalistic language. And lastly, we have literary language or language of literature. Okay, class, so that's it for now. I'll just be sending you your activities to do after watching this lesson. Goodbye.